Perhaps it's okay for you. Now, as far as languages are concerned, you might have noticed that we have simultaneous interpretation from German into English and from English into German, and this takes me already to the first actual program point, and I would like to briefly switch to English.
Elisa Ferreira, who is giving the keynote speech today. Madam Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Guten Morgen.
Good morning.
Dankeschön.
Thank you.
It's over. Now I'll move into English. Dear Secretary General of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Regions, dear Economy Minister of the city of Vienna, dear Mr. Peter Henke, dear Minister Martina Hechtinger, dear colleagues, it is really a pleasure to be here in Vienna to celebrate the adoption of the Austrian Regional Fund and / Just Transition Fund as well. This program is absolutely, I think, relevant for the balanced development of Austria, which is part of the balanced development of Europe. And it is important to launch together with you, in fact, this next generation of regional investment in Austria. Yesterday, I had the pleasure to visit Upper Austria and Lower Austria to discuss the importance of investment at the regional level, because that's for the regional level that we work, for the people on the ground. I visited local projects implemented with the support of cohesion funds, successful projects, highlighting in particular cross-border cooperation, effective healthcare in pandemic times, innovation and fantastic startup potential. I was very happy to see that even a modest contribution from the European budget, from the regional development funding, can in fact have an impressive leverage impact, drawing public and private funding to our common European priorities. The 2021-27 Regional Just Transition Fund, Regional Fund Just Transition Fund program represents, in fact, not a big amount by Austrian standards. It represents 1.8 billion euros of investment, with 1/3 from the European budget and 2/3 from national public and private financing. And this blending, this leverage, is in itself a value added. It is, in fact, an excellent example of pulling together public and private resources to ensure balanced regional growth in Austria. I would really like to thank the Managing Authority, or OROC, for the study on the quantitative effects of the European Union structural funds and cohesion funds in Austria. It is important from time to time to evaluate what we do, to try to improve. And the study by the Austrian Institute of Economic Research, in fact, just confirmed that the 31 billion euros we invested together in Austria over the last 25 years, so since 95 till 2020, helped, in fact, to decrease disparities between regions inside Austria. The study finds that in Austria, in fact, these disparities across regions have been persistently decreasing. Austria's only transition region, Burgenland, is an example, making the most of cohesion programs, both in terms of job creation, capital stock expansion, and therefore gross regional product. And by supporting strong regional growth, cohesion policy is in fact crucial for the well-functioning of the single market, because competition cannot be positive if the partners under competition are too unequal. This will create even increased imbalances. In fact, because the single market is so structural in the functioning of the European Union, it is at the core of the success of European integration. The average income per capita of the member states that joined the European Union in 2004, and obviously they have been benefiting a lot from cohesion policy, but their income per capita has increased from 59% of the European average when they exceeded, so from 59% to an average of 77% of the European average in 2019, so just before the pandemic. As the economies of newer member states grow steadily towards the European average, so does their purchasing power, and consequently the market for our internal market to be an engine for growth increases, expands. So in fact, the market for goods, services, businesses, investment in those countries also triggers the development of the more developed areas in Europe. So it's a win-win situation. Austria knows this very well, successfully implementing cross-border programs with all its neighbors. Border regions should thrive. They are of paramount importance for cultural and economic exchanges, for common projects connecting Europe and its citizens. Cohesion policy supports long-term integration and investment-driven development. This is the core. This is the target of cohesion policy. But in fact, cohesion policy is or has been also instrumental in providing support in times of crisis. To workers and businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic, to refugees fleeing the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, reminding us that Europe is at its strongest when it takes care of its weakest and more vulnerable. In the context of the energy crisis, we are prepared once again in cohesion policy to mobilize its instruments and to work with you to offer support to the most vulnerable households and companies and firms. In these difficult times of crisis upon crisis, it is more important than ever to build on the solid foundation of future-proof investments. And the new Regional Just Transition Fund program is more than just money. It represents the future that you want to create, and we want to create together with you, in line with our shared values as Europeans. I would particularly like to highlight 4 bold ambitions in this program. First, your ambition for a more competitive and innovative Austria. 50% of program resources will be invested in research and innovation-driven competitiveness, enabling in particular small and medium companies to participate in the innovation process. We just published in February a report that we do every 3 years to analyze what is the impact, the real impact of cohesion policy. And this 8th cohesion report that was published in February identifies this issue, how to bring innovation into the market as one of the key factors in long-term development. So this is a very wise investment. We need to understand what is the methodology to transfer know-how from the centers of research into the real economy, to transfer it to the jobs we create and to the value added that companies produce. The second item or aspect is your ambition to invest a quarter of the funding in comprehensive energy efficiency measures. The importance of this investment has redoubled in the light of Russian aggression in Ukraine and their use of energy supplies as a weapon of war. We must make Europe independent of fossil fuels. We must invest in saving energy and efficiency energy and renewable energy more and more. The third element is integrated territorial development, both urban and urban-rural. We value very much the approach you are having in addressing this issue in the case of Vienna, Upper Austria, Carinthia, Styria, and continued community-led local development in Tyrol, which is in fact most welcome. These local measures, hand in hand with local stakeholders, are key to reducing in reality disparities, because we need this local energy, we need this engagement of people, so that we don't work top-down and we work bottom-up as well. And in this joint approach, we manage to get the right solutions and the right options. We want, in fact, to learn to understand the success of this process, to make sustainable local changes which meet actually the needs of citizens. Fourth, the Just Transition Fund component of the program will be particularly developed to top up the normal support in order to help carbon-intense regions to diversify towards more sustainable activities. The transition to a zero-carbon economy is absolutely necessary, but we know that some regions are more impacted by this transition than others. This is Europe's solidarity with people and with businesses that will have to adjust more and more intensively in order to make this transition a reality. And this is, in fact, again, Europe's solidarity with people and businesses most impacted by the green transition that we all want. It is also the essence of cohesion policy to support these most vulnerable regions facing geographical constraints or regions going through transition processes, and in fact creating a win-win for the regions themselves, but also for the European Union as a whole, as sometimes we forget it, but we are, all of us, as strong as our weakest link. These four ambitions paint, in fact, a coherent picture for the future of Austria, making the most of cohesion funding for modern, innovative and competitive regional growth, making a success of the green and digital transformations, but leaving, in reality, no place behind. I pay tribute to all the partners who worked together to create such an interesting and promising program. Any program is only as strong as the partnership which designs and delivers it. And here, I must pay tribute to the Austrian authorities, federal, regional, local, even the organizations of the civil society, and in particular the managing authorities who, from the very beginning, worked to ensure that all the partners were included, from municipalities, community groups, NGOs, to economic and social partners. I would particularly like to highlight, as a conclusion, two key aspects of this program which could serve as particularly interesting inspiration and examples for others across Europe. First, envisaging program support to what we call new European Bauhaus projects. As you know, this was, a recent idea, proposal, an inspiration, I think. And in fact, the green transition cannot be perceived by citizens as something that is done far away from them. How this green transition improves their everyday life, the quality of what they live every day, is in fact what matters. And this is what we are trying to do with the new European Bauhaus. The green transition, in fact, requires nothing less than a revolution. The way we produce, we consume, the way we work and travel, and the way we do events, and the way we heat our houses, the way we eat, the way we make our traveling options. Can we use these changes not just to promote sustainability, but also to promote quality of life? And that's what the new European Bauhaus tries to bring in, to bring an approach in which everything that we do has this kind of touch of being a cultural approach, aesthetic, inclusive, beauty. Being beautiful improves our life, improves the quality of our life. So I urge you to make the most of exchanges and examples from across Europe to ensure that this sustainability with style also takes place in Austria, and we are in the right place for this, for sure. The second innovation is that Austria is a pioneer in a new method to simplify procedures. We call it financing non-linked to costs. It's a sentence, but in fact is trying to create conditions that establish the right trade-off between accountability, we being capable of knowing and telling citizens where their money was used and what for, but at the same time avoids paperwork, invoices, and so it's a target-oriented kind of management. Austria is a pioneer in introducing these simplification methods, and we are working together in order to improve this method, to make it general, to make it more easy to be used by others, less experts or less advanced in this procedure. And in fact, doing this, and you are starting to do it for business investments in energy efficiency, is in its already a way through. Reimbursement will not be based on costs, receipts, invoices. Instead, payments are made based on results. And this has the double benefit of making administration simpler and of increasing the focus on good performance. But this is quite a sophisticated thing, so we are working together with you. And I am glad that Austria will continue this major simplification in the new program, and that other member states will be able to follow your example. Well, thank you very much. This is the ambition. Now is the time for action. It's the time for projects. It's the time for delivery on the ground. And so I look forward to seeing the results in the coming months and years. And I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you so much for welcoming in Austria, not only me, but all my colleagues. And thank you for your hospitality, your kindness, your foresight, your determination, and even the weather you managed so well. Thank you very much indeed. Danke schön.